Here.
Trustee Schaller.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 this evening is approval of the minutes for both the Committee of the Whole and the regular monthly meeting on December 5th, 2017. Are there questions or edits for the clerk on the minutes? There being none, Chair would like a motion to approve in block.
So moved.
By Trustee Gregory,
Second.
second by Trustee Schaller. Thank you both. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Chair, as this is our courtesy, will leave the record open on the minutes for another week in case people want to revisit them and look at them a second time. Thank you. Agenda item 5 for this evening. I'm actually not going to be talking about my neighbor Susie Perkins, who I want to have the board consider as a replacement for the vacancy created by Administrator Lang when she left the board to become our administrator. There is a brief bio on Susie that I will forward to everyone along with her phone number, and I'm going to give each of your cell phone numbers to her so that in the next month before our February meeting, she'll have an opportunity to visit with each of you. I think she brings a very important perspective in a lot of ways. That will be a nice addition and complement to the experience on this board. And I look forward to all of you meeting her and visiting with her on that. So I have no other remarks. We can move to agenda item 6. This is the first time in the agenda for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. Is there someone wishing to do so?
Thank you, Mayor and Board. My name is Linda Starkey, and my address is 236 North Main Street in Wakanda. I'm a former village trustee for North Barrington, one of your neighbors, as well as village president from North Barrington, and currently I serve as a trustee in Wakanda. But I come here tonight to learn what's going on in Lake Barrington, and to also let you know that I am a candidate for Lake County Board District 17, which serves Lake Barrington as well as other communities. And I just wanted to introduce you to myself, and so you can put a face to a name that you'll be seeing. And thank you for all that you do for your community.
Thank you. Thank you. Please.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Maria Peterson. I am a resident of North Barrington for the last 22 years, and I am a former retired attorney. And for the last 22 years here in North Barrington, I have had my own small business and raised my 3 children. They are now grown in New York, Minneapolis, and Tokyo. So I am here to announce that, actually I've been here incognito watching your meetings and learning all about you, and always more to learn. But I too am running as a Democrat on the Lake County Board, District 17. So I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and moving on. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Always appreciate those who are interested in public service, because we sure as heck don't do it for the money.
See if we can talk about it.
Yeah, let us be a warning. Let us be a lesson to all of you. Agenda item 7 is the consent agenda. I want to thank Administrator Dalton Lang for adding this feature to our agenda because it will make it move a lot faster. The consent agenda is precisely that. These are items that are going to be the ones where there is board consensus, and so protracted explanation and debate is not contemplated. A is to move to approve by unanimous consent items on the consent agenda. These items include the prior farmhouse demolition proposal, and I'll have the administrator touch on that, as well as the furnace and air conditioner replacement. Chair recognizes the administrator.
Sure. The Friar Farmhouse demolition proposal, which we discussed in the committee of the whole meeting prior to the regular scheduled meeting, staff is recommending that since the farmhouse is no longer habitable and there will be costly repairs to the septic, well, roof, and foundation, to make it habitable, that we consider demolishing it. And At last month's committee of the whole, I was instructed to seek an additional proposal. We've received two, one from Omega Demolition Corporation and another from Alpine Demolition. And Omega's proposal was for $24,958 and Alpine's was for $29,100. And staff is recommending that we approve a demolition agreement with Omega in an amount not to exceed $24,958 and to authorize the village administrator to expend a contingency amount of up to $3,000 for asbestos removal or to cover any unforeseen issues, and authorize village administrator to execute the necessary documents.
Are there questions for the administrator?
Other than I would like, as we spoke about in our session, that we contact the Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District prior to actually implementing whatever, to determine if there is any interest in the department utilizing the building as a training facility, either interior or entirely, and see what the response is, as long as obviously they have proper insurance that would cover us for that.
Absolutely. Understood.
There being no further conversation or no discussion or questions for the administrator, Chair would like a motion to approve and block agenda item 7B and C as stated above. Farmhouse demolition proposal and furnace and air conditioner replacement. May I have a motion?
So moved.
By Trustee Mitchell, thank you. Seconded by Trustee Thompson. Clerk, will please call the roll.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby?
Aye.
Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, thank you. Agenda item number 8 is the treasurer's report.
I have my fancy shoes on because I have a foot thing going on, so excuse my outfit, but they're actually very comfortable. I mean, they do me. So, if you saw my closet, you'd be horrified. This is what I have to wear tonight. But anyways, so before you have the 7 months ended November 30th, 2017, which means we are 58% through our fiscal year. So we'll start as we always do on page 2, looking at the flash report. We have $2,234,000 in assets, $790,000 in liabilities, $1,444,000 in equity, which gives us $202,234,000 in liabilities and equities, equal to our assets on the balance sheet. Year to date, our revenues are $1,608,000. Our expenses are $1,413,000 for net income or loss, of $195,000. As usual, we back out any sort of large extraordinary items down below and come up with our regular operations from income. So at this point this year, we're at $204,000 for regular operations and $348,000 at this point from last year from regular operations. So I'm a little embarrassed to say that each month I look at this and I go, wow, we're way behind where we were last year at this point. And it occurred to me that we had this one-time expenditure, separation expenditure, that happened at the end of fiscal year 2017 and beginning of 2018. So this is not comparing apples to apples, because the number from this year has expenses for that separation at this point last year, and those expenses were not in there. So I'm looking, all of a sudden it dawned on me this month. So we're not really comparing apples to apples. It will even out in about 2 months when we hit that same point where the expenses were picked up last year. It's just more accurate to probably look at actual to budget and make sure we're following budget along with budget as opposed to where we were last year at this point. I just wanted to make that comment because it's been bothering me each month that we're so far separate, but then, it's obviously very explainable. Look closer at the detail. So if we flip, as we will do now, we'll look to the budget to actual, and we'll go to page 11 and 12. So about 3/4 of the way down, we see total revenues are at 63% actual to budget. So we're trending ahead of 58%, for the year, where we are in the year. Once again, I've mentioned before, utility tax is lagging, sales tax is lagging. I really see that picking up now with the winter months, especially. It's obviously very cold. The utility tax is really driven, a lot by the electric heating and LES. And if we take out the projections for sales tax projections for Speedway out of our sales tax number, we're actually right on target. So I think once Speedway picks up, I don't foresee a problem with the ending with their fiscal year. So I think we're in good shape. Expenditures?
Excuse me, when would we expect to see the first revenue?
It's about a 2-month lag.
It's a 2-month lag?
Yeah. But we will get, so they opened up in November?
December 7th.
December.
No, we should actually see something end of January. So those will start, the sales are, so there's always this ongoing discussion about how you record those sales. So do you record the revenue when the sale's made at the pump, the sales tax, or do you record when the state actually vouchers it? It's a month lag when it's vouchered, so we get it about a month. And we recognize it on the voucher date. So that'll probably be January income.
And remind me, do we really have visibility? Do we see all this in a lump sum, or do we have visibility?
I have visibility
To the individual?
individually. They send out a report 3 times a year, so it's not quarterly, but it's 4 months. So what would you call that? It's, I don't know, whatever 4 months is.
3 times a year.
Three times a year. So I
You're right, the first one.
yeah. I'm trying to say with the quarterly.
Go ahead.
So, and that comes about a month after those 4 months end. So I should get the end of January, and the 4 months end of December. So we have the first 8 months, I've got those, set aside. We do get those by taxpayer. So.
Thank you.
If we look at expenditures, page 12, we're 57% actual to budget. Same ones are sort of trending high, but consultant, that's been pretty much right on budget. We're done with our outside consultant. And that was a high one that was trending. Legal services still a little bit high, but we've had a lot of ongoing, work in that area. That's really all I had to mention about expenses. If there's any other questions about the budget to actual, I'm happy to answer those at this point. Okay, so page 13, we'll turn to the motor fuel tax fund. And I'm very happy to announce that the payable that's been on the books to IDOT since I started of $23,759 was just resolved this month. We received a final bill, and the bill was only $21,892. So it's a $2,000 pickup in revenue, so to speak, because we expensed that amount years ago. So that'll be off the balance sheet next month. It's actually sort of exciting because every month we carry that forward. And it took the state, I've been here 4.5 years, it's taken the state.
It's been on there for years.
Could you remind everybody what that was for?
It was the Woodland Bridge, it was our share of the Woodland Bridge. That was 5 years ago. Page 17, water sewer fund. We have current assets of $1,336,000 in the fund. And we hang on to that for future capital expenditures. And we know the water tower is going to be painted this spring. And page 21 is open space fund. We have $140,000 there in our operating account. Debbie and I actually are starting a project now going forward to separate what was spent on operating, now that there's no rental income to the fund any longer. Any operating expenses will be paid by the general fund that come out of the fund, and we're going to separate or go through and do a real good accounting showing a recap of rental income versus the expenses that were incurred to maintain the property. And just make sure we haven't used any capital, any of the operating, excuse me, I think about this. We're not using any of the the bond balance for operating expenses. Yes, only for capital improvements.
So would that involve the demolition?
We can use that for demolition,
We can use it. Okay.
and that's where that would come from. Okay, so the accounts payable, there's not really anything out of the ordinary. You will see the payment to IDOT on warrant B. And that's really, I've reviewed those, and there's, unless you have questions, there's really nothing that's out of the ordinary this month. And that's the end of my report.
Are there questions from the treasurer? As always, thank you for the great work you do on this. We take for granted sometimes the fact that you and Debbie work very, very hard to keep these things extraordinarily disciplined. And I'm very grateful for your service. Questions for the treasurer? There being none, the chair would like a motion to approve and block agenda items 8A through C. approve the financial statements as of November 30th, 2017. B, pay bills in the amount of $204,739.20 as listed on the accounts payable warrant A dated January 2, 2018, and 8C, pay bills in the amount of $39,851.64 as listed on the accounts payable warrant B dated January 2, 2018. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you by trustee Scheller, second. By trustee Rigby. Thank you both, gentlemen. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Scheller?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby? Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, thank you. Agenda item number 9 is administrator's report. Administrator Feldmeyer.
Sure, I have a long one this month. So speaking of IDOT, we received the Phase 1 abbreviated project report for the proposed signalization of Route 14 and Cuba Road. That proposed improvement will consist of traffic signal installation, including a railroad interconnect there, and far out loop detectors will also be installed out to Pepper Road. The preliminary estimate at this point is $713,000, with the village's portion being $43,000. That is still a very rough number because it's just a Phase 1, so that's a preliminary design. The earliest construction would begin around 2020. I spoke to our contact at IDOT because I looked in their 2018 through 2023 proposed highway improvement program, and it wasn't listed. He said often the smaller signalized intersections are not listed, but if it goes through with design and another project doesn't happen, it could get moved out, but 2020 at the earliest, and then we would get billed around 2028. So Peggy put that in the far future budget, $42,000.
I won't be there.
You haven't given notice of retirement.
Yeah, right.
The Barrington Area Chamber of Commerce will hold their annual economic summit on February 7th at the Barrington White House. President Richardson will be traveling.
Yes.
So I will be giving a brief economic summary of Lake Barrington's work in 2017. Trustee Thompson will be attending as well. If any other trustees would like to attend, contact Lisa and she'll submit your registration for this breakfast event. And after the economic summit, I will be driving to Peoria to attend the ILCMA Winter Conference. The purpose of the Illinois City County Management Association is to promote and support professional local government management. I scored a scholarship for the registration fee of $225 as a first-time attendee. So that was an email well worth sending. And last spring, interim administrator Bowling met with trustee Mitchell and an architect from FGM to discuss the Friar Farmhouse structural issues and also to discuss preparation of a building assessment study for Village Hall. And this study would outline a plan for maintenance and replacement options for aging Village Hall facilities, along with a space utilization analysis and renovation costs. I asked FGM to update their proposal, had a few changes on it, and I think we will be seeking a couple other proposals as well, and we'll bring them to the board for their consideration at that point. And the furnace going out, which is not even the furnace that we're replacing is in the
This
back
is not the
office.
one we
Not the
This
one.
is not the one, and this is the one
It's
that's
next meeting.
Yeah. The iron removal tanks at the water treatment plant need to be painted, and a gasket on the aeration tower needs to be replaced. Baxter Woodman, who is the water treatment plant engineer for Fox River Grove, is making technical specs for bid documents on our behalf at a cost of $1,500, so I should be receiving those in the near future, and then we can go out for bid on that. And we're paying for this money. We saved so much money on the water tank painting that's going to happen in the spring that we can do this work as well in this budget year. The comp plan revisions are now in the hands of Housing and Levine, and we should have the final draft within 2 weeks, well before the next village board meeting. And just one other note, I received the environmental consultants report from Speedway. It's their first of their twice-a-year required groundwater monitoring reports that the Plan Commission board asked for them to submit. And the samples were taken prior to the Speedway opening, and as expected, all was in order. So I was glad to see that. And that's it. Any questions?
Yes, questions for the administrator? Thank you very much. Agenda item 10 is the clerk's report.
Just want to remind everyone that January 15th, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the office will be closed, Village Hall. We plan on getting a newsletter, winter newsletter out. If all the information is collected by January 12th, it should be in mailboxes by January 31st. And I'm not sure if everyone realizes that we give out new welcome folders to new residents when they come in to the village office. And those have been going out since 2008, for a while now, but I'm in the process of updating them as well as creating a page on the website for new residents. And here I'm going to show everyone the bag that everyone gets. So our folder is in here, and this is from the chamber, dropped about 20 bags off. So this is the information that we give out about the village and other important information. And then there's a lot of information on the Barrington area in here and some freebies and stuff like that we give out to new residents to welcome them when they come in. So you can pass that along to anyone you know that moves into the area to come stop by and meet us and get their bag.
It also came in handy last week. A gentleman came in who was considering a purchase in Tallgrass. And so we were chatting up at the front counter, and I said, we just got you bags full of stuff, even though you're not a new resident. And I think he was gobsmacked when you got a property learned that we were such a friendly village and that we'd be giving him this information. And he just stopped by to ask about well and septic. Right. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa, for doing that.
Are there questions for the clerk? Thank you. Chair, we'll move to
Christmas tree pickup. Do we know from Waste Management?
Oh,
We
thank you.
do. Sorry, I announced that before. I'm trying to remember. Can't remember the date off the top of my head.
It is on our website.
It is on our website.
And you have Facebooked it, so
Great.
you can re-Facebook it tomorrow. And
Yeah, put it back out there again for people.
All right, let's take a look, see if it's
But the Christmas.
on Wednesday, January 17th.
Yes.
17th, awesome,
Thank
thank
you.
you. That's important, because we had problems, people didn't miss that last year, just,
I love the touch of a button at Google.
you got it. It just took us a little
Take
longer.
your lights off though before you put it out.
Yes,
Ornaments.
yeah.
Further questions for the clerk? And thank you for bringing up the collection of the trees, Chris. Okay, we can move to the agenda item 11, report of the standing committees. A is branding and communications. This is something actually I should have mentioned in the president's remarks. We all are suffering through this unseasonably bitter cold weather. This is a great time to do a wellness check on neighbors, especially seniors who live alone. It is dangerously cold, and so let me invite everyone to just be a little more attentive to those around us, because there's less margin for error when it is this cold, and even a short exposure to cold weather can be very, very harmful, especially for those who are fighting illness or otherwise infirm. And so just everyone check on your neighbors and make sure everybody is staying warm. I also want to thank the candidates for coming in tonight and saying hello. We don't provide a political platform in this, but all of us are volunteers for all practical purposes in these jobs, and we recognize the great partnership we have with Lake County. You know, the best thing that the federal government and the state government can do for us is leave us alone. And county is a great partner. The sheriff does our law enforcement, and we're very, very pleased with the partnership that we have with multiple Lake County departments, and hope that that service will continue, as I have every expectation it will. The third thing is, I am attending later this month the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where I am a member. Their annual meeting is always in Washington, D.C. in the third week of January. I attend. The village pays the conference fee, as you all know, but I have always paid my own travel expenses and everything. I pay my airfare, my hotel, my meals, my cabs, my parking, and I find the activities to be very beneficial. Smaller communities don't have the resources to have big staffs, and so the big city mayors have been particularly nice in sharing their resources with us over the years. I am active in 3 committees of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. One is immigration reform, and I signed in my personal capacity the mayor's letter on DACA, on the Dreamers, last month. The second thing is the Mayor's Water Council, where I have been especially active for many, many years. And the third, more recently, is the Mayor's Task Force on Opioid Addiction and the opioid crisis. These are issues that I think are important to our community, our region, and ones where I have personal interest as well. So I will report back on that next month and attend the task force meetings that have separate meetings during the year as well, especially the Water Council, which meets separately twice a year as well. Although they met in Napa last month and I couldn't go.
Oh, no.
Go on.
That's ironic.
Yeah, it's particularly bitter.
Bitterly ironic.
Yeah, that's, so that's my report this month. I also want to thank folks, and I don't want to steal any thunder here from Trustee Burke or Trustee Thompson, but we did have a fabulous opening of the new Speedway last month on the 7th of December. Important to recognize again, not only the current members of the board, but our former colleagues, Dave Bracklaw, who sat up here when we had that debate in our community, as well as our dear departed friend, the late Connie Schofield, who we miss desperately. The Daily Herald did a very nice piece on leaders that were lost in 2017, and I commend you guys for making sure Connie was mentioned, because she made a tremendous contribution to this community, and thank you for that. So that's my report. We'll move to 11B, Community Relations, Special Events, and Veterans Affairs. Trustee Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, continuing our discussion from the previous meeting in December, I'm working with the Barrington High School Dean of Arts regarding the wall mural for our staff and officials photos, because I'd like to do we need to have a logo on that wall as well, and I'm hoping to have a student do a mural as opposed to putting some piece. Yeah. And also talking to the same dean about music nights at Friar Farm. We had a wonderful meeting. She's very up on both of those, but she did tell me it'd be late January, early February before she gets back to me. She has to discuss, the issues with some of her compatriots or colleagues. So, July 19th, the veterans of Lake Barrington Shores would like to utilize Friar Farm for an event, Braveheart Riding, which is a not-for-profit that works with veterans with PTSD using horses. And they'd like to come and put on a show for the village on July 19th. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm also going back to my original research on Friar Farm lighting, solar lighting. It's very difficult to get in there off the road when it's dark. It's hard to see the driveway there, so I'm hoping, been working on some solar lights and still have a lot more work to do to report back on that. And as you all know, there have been no new ideas since Homer, that wonderful Greek. I picked a little something out of the newspaper. Deer Park is hosting a family party for residents. And I thought, gee, wouldn't that be a nice idea if we did something like that? So I'll be working on the logistics of that and hope that I'll get your approval to do that. And that's my report, Mr. President.
Terrific, thank you. Are there questions for Trustee Thompson? Thank you. That's a lot of sweat equity. Appreciate it an awful lot. 11C is Economic Development, Trustee Burke.
Thank you, President Richardson. As you mentioned earlier about the Speedway grand opening, the only thing that I would add to that is that having been there many times since to buy gas and instructing others to do so, and talking with people inside, business is very brisk, no pun intended. And my kids are complaining that when they come home from the city, they have to come home on fumes, and then they have to fuel up in Lake County. And then they have to fuel up again before they leave the house. So, but I have received some unsolicited feedback. In fact, I was talking to an individual the other day who actually lives in Barrington Hills, and just went on and on about the Speedway. He literally said it's the best looking gas station I've ever seen in my life. He goes, "How did you guys pull that off?" Those were his exact words. I said, "Oh, it was easy." So positive feedback all the way around. I will look forward to beginning to see revenue generation from that, and monitoring that closely. So all signs very positive. The other thing of note that I want to report on is, and President Richardson has alluded to it earlier in Committee of the Whole meeting, is our friends at Lake Barrington Motorsports. So Lake Barrington Motorsports, if you haven't seen it, you haven't been, it's over behind the Horseshoe Grill on Hillside Court. Hillside Court. It's about a 12,000 square foot building.
12,000.
12,000, right? Beautiful building, built by Ken Melo and Bob Podgorski. They opened up recently their repair side of the business, so they repair, I guess, any type of car. Maybe their specialty, a couple of specialties would be luxury European, and also they do some really cool work on classic cars, roadsters, and all kinds of things. They're up and running, and that's great news. They've come to the village, and informed us that they are interested in beginning a retail sales operation of luxury used cars, not unlike we enjoyed for a number of years at Fidelity Motorsports. Pretty much a similar model. They think the time is right to be in that business. They've assembled a group of professionals who have been in the luxury auto sales, used and new, and are putting a team together, and they are very anxious to be open for business. So they've approached us and asked us what was the process, working with Karen and Mr. Bateman. We let them know what we thought would be required for them in order to be able to start doing retail sales there. Their current special use allowed for incidental sales that was related to repair, but not for specifically to be running sales through there. So their SUP would have to be revised for retail sales. It would have to be revised for outdoor display, meaning parking cars outside for display purposes. And we have to do an evaluation of parking to determine if there's ample parking. Those are probably the major hitters. So they'll be going in front of the Plan Commission, hopefully, if they get their submission in.
They submitted this afternoon.
Oh, the rest of the story. So they're holding up their end of the bargain. They submitted. We hope that allows us to get it on the late January Plan Commission meeting, right, on that agenda. If all goes well with that, and that can be done in timely, then we could be discussing it either in a special meeting to try to accelerate the process, or no later than the meeting that we have in February for so we will make that determination. So this is just a heads up that I'm appreciative of the help that Mr. Bateman and Karen have given, because they came to us and said, look, we're really anxious to get started, and we now know what we want to do. Can you help us expedite? And this is where we have a chance to put our money where our mouth is and be business friendly the way we talk about being business friendly. It doesn't mean not doing our due diligence. It means not being overly bureaucratic and dragging our feet on things that don't need to take that long. Because truthfully, if they start selling cars in February, that's good for everybody. So just know that you'll be hearing more about that. Just want to give a heads up on that, and thank Jim and Karen for their support of that. And that is my report.
Are there questions for Trustee Burke?
Just that I saw an ad in the Daily Herald, of course, about a new business at North Point, a jumpy place.
Bounce.
Oh, Bounce?
Yeah, the bounce. No.
You talking about Big Wave?
Big Wave.
Big Wave, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about that last month.
Did we?
Yeah.
I must have waved the wrong way. So-
It must not have caught your attention.
Yeah, right.
So that you would find yourself doing.
Another new business,
Yeah.
they're jumping a little
It's getting
bit.
good reviews.
There's a husband and wife who own that.
Yep.
Natalie and Tom, and they're very excited to be here.
Yeah.
That's good.
Further questions for trustee Burke? D, I have no further report other than what I reported earlier for external relations, so we can move to E, HR administration, trustee Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got 3 items. The first is that we missed Lisa's birthday on the 26th of December. So happy
Oh, that was right there.
I have a good authority from the administrator. She got the day off, so.
Well, that was Lisa Tlapapina Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We all got the memo, didn't you?
Proclamation.
We only turn 29 once.
Yeah.
Happy belated.
Good.
Second item is that the Peggy and Debbie and Karen and the others are beginning to put the budget together for FY19, and so that'll be going on. We'll start seeing semblances of that in March, April. Peggy says March, April. So March, April, we'll have something going on.
You'll have it, yeah.
And I want to thank again Peggy and Karen. They finished in a hurry, as you know, we all were in a hurry, the employee insurance plans for that began on the 1st of January. So great job, Karen and Peggy particularly. So thanks a lot. That's all I have.
Questions for trustee Rigby? Thank you. 11F, open spaces and village facilities, trustee Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I'd like to compliment our new village administrator on being available and being very interested and very open to helping the Open Space and Facilities Committee, mostly facilities these days. And I'm happy to report that we had our first meeting of 2017, Trustee Rigby and I, on the morning of the Speedway opening. We had coffee at another local merchant at Pepper Park and had a nice committee meeting there. So we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but I got there early and had to buy my own coffee, so you're buying next time.
Deal. I'll give you my Pepper Park punch card. And just the other things that you've seen as far as Friar Farm, the AC, heat, HVAC system that I was stunned. I came and spent a day in December 14, 15, and went looking through to evaluate the bids on what the BTU and the handling and the air covers and everything was. And so I'm picking up these stained books on the floor in both rooms and going, wow, 1993, they never threw this out. And then I realized that they were put in 1993, and those are the original HVAC units. They've made a few tweaks, but it was quite a shocker. So it helped expedite the proposal that you saw on the agenda tonight to get that system redone. And if this one has not, it's gotten a little warmer in here.
Just by your talking.
I think it's just our hot air. I think that's it. I'm going to check the thermostat in a moment. And I want to say that this has plagued us for years, but I have now determined where the mice are coming in. And the issue that we have with the mice, I used my 2 dogs after a walk, well actually sort of before a walk when they were really eager to get out on the trail, and I took them around the back of the building here where all the holes are, and there's a couple of places around the AC exchange, line sets, and a couple of other things where the caulking and stuff has come out.
Yeah.
And they're getting in, and I tracked it down. The dogs were very helpful. It cost me a few milk bones. The problem is right now, I can put something temporarily in there, but it is...
Steel wool.
Yeah, there is steel wool. There's some rusted steel wool from some others, but it's too cold to put the commercial industrial caulk we need to seal those holes, so that will get that done. But I'm delighted and have checked at ordering a special mouse-proof door seal, which I will talk to you if we can authorize that and get that installed over the roll-up door to help the other endpoint that they're coming into the building. So these are big victories.
All right.
They are. We appreciate it.
That's right.
So And then there's some other things that we're going to address that I was completely unaware of in the building. And, locks and gates and things like that, so that we'll deal with. But
Yeah, this building is like the trustees, it's middle-aged.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, right, speak for yourself. Senior citizen.
I got my toolbox, I'm ready.
Are there questions for trustee Mitchell? Chair would then like to move to agenda item 11G, Public Safety and Gated Communities Trustee Shell.
Obviously, the Lake County Sheriff's Department is usually here this evening, and probably help trying to keep people warm this evening. But another reminder, in addition to President Richardson indicating the wellness check, is also a reminder, if you've seen articles, and again in the Daily Herald, about unlocked cars in driveways being stolen. And again, another caution to people that, especially in this time of year, rather than just leave your car running or just forgetting about locking it, to lock it, because key fobs are just wonderful once you find them inside the car and you can get inside the house. So just a way of warning. The Village of Lake Barrington was represented at Chief Mike Wall's retirement, which was Friday, December 15th, up at the Wakanda Fire Department. Chief Wall had been with the department 33 years. It was a nice ceremony for him. We read their commendation to him, and Administrator Walton Lang provided one of our historical mugs. So in addition to reading the commemoration, we gave him a mug, and one of the other prizes someone gave him, he's got a bar in his house, and they put Wall's Tavern. I said, well, you can go home and have yourself a drink at your tavern. So it was a nice, I'm glad we took part in that. Thank you very much. The Barrington Countryside Fire Protection District obviously was down at the Speedway grand opening, and that is now under their careful watch, and hopefully they won't need any service from them. Some of their firefighters did volunteer for Salvation Army kettle collection over at the Jewel last weekend, which is before Christmas. Did a nice job with that. And they have approved an intergovernmental agreement for cooperative emergency weather and disaster warning with Cuba Township in the village of Lake Zurich. So there's also, ACOG is doing that tabletop exercise on January 31st down in the Barrington Public Safety Building, which I believe will be participating. I'll be participating. I'll be there as well, and anyone else, and we've invited the departments, the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Departments to take part in that as well. As far as gated communities, I got a report from Kathleen Schwan, who's Community Sales Manager over at Tallgrass. They had another closing December 22nd. Hopefully, maybe it was the guy that got the welcome day.
Yeah.
So in 2017, they had a total of 4 closings. Have already had 6 that will close this year. Of course, that number does not include new sales that will be sold early in the year, closed later in the year. So they're excited about 2018. Tallgrass is moving around, moving forward. I think, as we pointed out before, the Enclave is pretty well sold out. We're getting to that point. And Kinsey has resigned their services for it. They still don't, I believe, have a management company for that. So as soon as they do, we try to reach out to them as well. And Lake Barrington Shores, just there, that's about it. More than anything else. Finally, I am open to any ideas. Last year, obviously, we spearheaded or got involved in the farmers market. And we've been trying to reach out to Al Pass this year about allowing us to even have one out there. He's still over in Europe, so we haven't been able to, we're supposed to come back. Don't think there'd be any problems. However, I'm looking for anyone to assist in that project, because as far as undertaking it like we did last year, and the responsibility for insurance and everything else, and some of the people from Zazas who were involved in it last year, they're kind of backing out a little bit. So if anyone has any ideas for how we can maintain that, either in that location or some other location, we're open to any ideas you might have. It was successful. We had some challenges, obviously, with regards to it, but it was a good venue, and I think most of the vendors did fairly well. We've got a list of the 20 to 25 people who were part of it last year, but we're open to any ideas as to how we put that together for 2018. That's the end of my report.
John, a quick question. Does that suggest that those vendors are most, you believe, to come back?
Yeah, they will under the proper.
Under right circumstances?
Circumstances.
But the point being with that, and I understand that, but it was successful enough for them.
Oh, yes.
It was rewarding enough for them to want to come back.
And most of them realize that it's a startup.
Right.
I mean, basically, well, we've had one down at Pepper Park, we did Camlin. This really was the first full-blown farmer's market that the village has had. And most of them realize, they said it takes 2 or 3 years to really build out a farmer's market where people get used to coming on a regular basis. And the Tuesday date worked out well, considering that Barrington has Thursday and Wakanda has Thursday. And I think Barrington was struggling at the end of the year, so I think that there's good opportunity. It's just a matter of putting it together and doing it right. Yep, and a matter of order.
Thank you. Are there further questions for Trustee Scheller?
Yes, I would like to say I'd be really pleased to work with you.
Okay, we can put together.
And I'll ask council a question based on this. Did the template we established last year, created last year, is that in good enough shape to save some time and some steps and effort here to repurpose it for another go-around?
Oh, sure. I think we have a resolution by which we approved a temporary use permit with conditions, and that is easily adaptable. I think we have to identify what the operating entity would be.
That's the hurdle, you know.
Yeah.
What do you have to form in order to be that LLC, and who wants to be responsible for doing that? As far as the insurance, that could come out of the vendor's participation, and as far as waste management, they've got their commitment to provide that facility for this year. So, just a matter of the organizational part.
Yeah, but I think from a staff point of view, from a legal point of view, I think we know what has to, how we interface with them. So it's just really, that step is really to identify the operating organization.
Yeah. So I need help with it.
Further questions or comments on this? Okay, then 11H is roads and infrastructure, and I'll yield to the administrator for the report here.
Sure, I'll be meeting this Friday with Gewalt Hamilton to go over their draft report on the pavement analysis that we talked about last month. And we're also going to be discussing this year's road program and timelines for when we can get the bids out and go forward with that.
Perfect. Questions for the administrator on this? Okay, there is no agenda item 12 for old business, so we can move to the ordinances under agenda item 13. A is sign code amendments. Chair will recognize the village attorney.
You saw this and referred it to the Plan Commission for the necessary public hearing. They had I think 2 evenings of public hearing on it, and I thought it was it was kind of a trial run for the newly constituted Plan Commission too, and we had Mark Sesh as acting as the chair in one session, and Jay Nixon acting as the acting chair in the other session, and I think they've contributed a lot to this ordinance in terms of covering things that really weren't in the ordinance previously, and flushed out some details relative to prohibited signs and sign lighting, and the original exercise was intended to deal with creating sign regulations which are content neutral, to comply with the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Reed versus the town of Gilbert. We certainly do that, and in addition, I think through the Plan Commission's efforts and comments, we've I think filled in a number of other areas of regulation that were lacking in our existing ordinance.
Are there questions for the village attorney on this matter? All right, the chair would like a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-0-1. Thank you. An ordinance amending the Village of Lake Barrington zoning ordinance titled A Zoning of the Village of Lake Barrington Village Code to wit comprehensive amendments to Chapter 9, sign regulations, which will provide content-neutral regulations. May I have that motion, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Mitchell, thank you.
Second.
Please have a second. Trustee Rigby, thank you both. Please call the roll.
Trustee Mitchell.
Yes.
Trustee Rigby.
Aye.
Trustee Burke.
Yes.
Trustee Schaller.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes, thank you. 13B, Employee Policy Manual Revisions, harassment. Chair will yield to the village attorney.
All right, so in the 5th edition of the Illinois General Assembly, they passed Illinois Public Act 100-0554, which, while they were struggling in terms of dealing with their own issues relative to getting their house in order, relative to allegations of sexual harassment, in Springfield, they decided to mandate that all other governmental units in the state should be mandated to solve a problem that didn't necessarily exist. That's what they did. They mandated by Public Act 100-554 that all units of local government had to adopt harassment policies against, they call it a harassment policy, it's really a policy against harassment that meets certain standards. And for all practical purposes, our employee manual already did meet those standards, except for a few minor things where the statute really required that we cross-reference certain Illinois statutes. And so that's basically what this does. It makes a few minor amendments to our employee manual to reflect the fact that the village has now a fully compliant harassment policy against harassment. Ours was a fine policy beforehand, but now we comply with the mandates of that statute. And I think it's fair to say that the substantive changes that were mandated by the statute were very minor. They were basically referencing the Illinois Whistleblowers Act and the Illinois Human Rights Act. And those statutes already exist out there, so it isn't like they weren't available to people to reference. But now there are express references in our employee manual to those. And of course, our policy against harassment is broader than what was mandated, which was just a policy against sexual harassment. Our policy against harassment applies to all kinds of harassment.
Given the importance of this issue, the chair would like to recognize, for any comment you wish to make, the chair of our Committee on Finance, HR, and Administration, Trustee Rigby Frank.
I glanced through it. I didn't see, as Jim said, I didn't see that many substantive changes there. I think it's needed. Our employees know that we're here to serve them and to protect them when they're doing their job out here. One of the things that happened, Karen had, was it the sheriff come in? The sheriff's office come in, so most of the time now during business hours, you'll see that door locked to the office back there. Just a minor preventative step to help protect the employees here. And if anything happens, call me, because I've got firepower.
Okay. And he knows how to use it.
Wow. Just so that's
Going on cowboy. Yeah. Oklahoma.
That's why he's on the facilities committee too.
Yeah.
Are there questions for the?
I just have one, what about, have we considered or talked about any security camera?
Yes, we have a system in place with 3 security cameras. They need to be updated, as many things do. We need a few additional. When Lieutenant Thompson came and we talked about general safety in the workplace, he suggested a few more locations where we could put them, so we'll be looking into that.
Thank you. Further questions for the village attorney or the administrator? There being none, Chair would like a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-0-2. Thank you. An ordinance amending the Lake Barrington Village Code, Chapter 6, Municipal Officers and Employees, Title I, Administration, and adoption of amended and restated employee policy manual. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Schaller, seconded by Trustee Burke. Thank you both. Clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Schaller?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
Trustee Rigby?
I know.
Trustee Thompson?
Yes.
President Thompson.
Yes, thank you. 13C, Nicor Gas Franchise Authorization of Village. Is this village attorney or village administrator?
I'll take it and
So our ordinance that we passed in 1964, which was for 50 years, expired in 2014. And NICOR came in knocking earlier this month and said, hey, we don't have a current franchise agreement, basically, with the village of Lake Barrington. And so basically, they had an updated version. Attorney Bateman looked through it and made some tweaks that were, I think, very good. I sent them to NICOR for their review, and actually, by now, they were supposed to have something back to us, which they don't. So for tonight, this is just for informational purposes, and we'll wait to hear back from NICOR to see, because they have a copy of this drafted ordinance as well, to see if they have any tweaks, just so that we give you the final version. So it's not, I'm going to take it off of recommended action at this point.
My experience is they don't often agree with the changes municipalities suggest.
They want the same thing for every single municipality.
Right, but, I've been through the process a couple times with NICOR, and at a time when actually there wasn't really, they didn't have a model either, and some years back they were a little more amenable to changes, but we'll just have to see. I know that there's been several consortiums of municipalities that have organized themselves downstate and in the area to try to kind of push collectively for an improved model franchise ordinance with NICOR, but they haven't, I don't think they've been very successful so far. So we'll see how successful we can be.
So look for this to be on the agenda for next month.
Thank you. Question related to that. I know you and I had a brief discussion about utility bills for the village. So I would assume there is no charge for NICOR?
Correct. So right now, the village gets free gas at this building. So it's, heat and our stove that we never use. One of the things that is available to us, and we're running the numbers, is it's separate from this agreement, is based on, I don't know if it's this or the NICOR, it's the same for all communities. Depending upon your population, you get so many therms per capita. And that converts to a current price in the market. So once a year we could say, okay, NICOR,
level up and settle out.
give us the cash and we'll pay our heating bill here. And whether or not that's going to be profitable or not, we have to wait until we get some other information from them.
ComEd.
ComEd is the same thing. We do not pay electricity here at the village hall. We pay it at Friar Farm and at the treatment plant and our lift stations and things like that. It's only the village hall.
Xfinity or Comcast.
We pay.
Jim, is that a typical agreement?
I'd have to look at
Yeah.
what we're entitled to under the Comcast franchise.
I haven't seen that, but we can take a look into that.
I thought we were entitled to one service drive, or something, a limited amount.
So there is no franchise agreement for Dish or Direct. Those, but then AT&T for hard landline phone.
Yeah, we do award a franchise to AT&T, but there isn't a lot of substance to that in terms of.
But we pay for phones.
Yeah.
Big time. Okay, I just want to clarify.
NICOR administers their, free service program basically through what are called side letters. They don't want to put it into the franchise agreement. Instead, they want to have a separate letter with every municipality. But so municipalities tend to look for what's called a most favored nations agreement, meaning that we want the best agreement to give to any municipality at the time.
That's exactly what I was thinking with Comcast or Xfinity, whatever they call themselves today, is that if there are others who are getting that ability, because I know that there are community benefits that they have to provide for community cable and that, and I don't think we're availing ourselves of that. So we need to reevaluate that. Not the whole franchise, but the benefit that comes to the village itself.
Yeah, we used to have the access too, where they would do the tapes, and that's just like there now in the system. So whether or not with YouTubing it, you might be able to access it rather than the videotapes we used to use.
It's really deep. It's not.
Doesn't hurt.
I'm always looking for stuff like
Prime
that.
time TV.
That's why there's no food after this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, there being any further questions, Chair would like a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-0-.
No,
We're gonna hold on until we get comments back on that.
I apologize. You only said it in clear view, so. There are no resolutions or new business, so we can move to agenda item 16, which is the second opportunity for the public to address the village board on non-agenda items. There being no such opportunity being sought, there's no need for a closed session. Chair would like a motion to adjourn. By Trustee Rigby, seconded by Trustee Thompson. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
It's so early.